Yeah, that was right when I got drafted.
Let's talk about it. Talk about it. You got, from Roseville, California. You were selected by the Marlins during that time period. How did the draft process work back when David Berg was waiting to see what befall him in baseball? How did it work?
Well, actually, I played 2 years in Sacramento City College, junior college in California. Mm-hmm. And I got drafted after my freshman year, just kind of like a draft and follow real late, and, just so the team could have the rights for you. And obviously they didn't offer me a contract, but just wanted the rights. And then after my sophomore year, no draft at all. I had a pretty good year, and I think a lot of the scouts assumed I was going to school and didn't get drafted, so I went off to University of Miami. And after my junior year, we went to the World Series, and I didn't really play that well, so I didn't get drafted again. And after that senior year, I just got drafted, and it was late. Here you go, $1,000. Not really any big money, but it was an opportunity to play.
What did you know about the Expos at the time?
The Expos, they had a lot of young talent. Larry Walker, Grudslanek, Marquise Grissom, F.P. Santangelo, who I knew from Northern California. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of young talent, and they seemed to. It's kind of like the Marlins now. They kind of seem to do the same thing. They groom a lot of young players.
The Expos were here for about 19 years.
No.
And they owned the franchise in Jamestown. Unlike normally where there's just an affiliation. They actually owned it until they sold it to a group in Burlington, Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long-standing, and that's where the Randy Johnson, the Marquis Grissoms, the Andres Galarragas all found their way through here. And I'll just tell a quick vignette, because your paths may have crossed Gary Carter's. But when Gary Carter gave his Hall of Fame address, and we listened to it, and all of a sudden his first few sentences were, "I want to thank the people from Jamestown, New York, because that's where it all began."
Yeah.
Now, I got to tell you, for all those guys who follow this and would know, because we've written histories about this,
Mm-hmm.
Gary Carter, that was such a blast out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You would know if Gary Carter was here. Well, the story was, back in that time period, they had training camps here, and they'd bring all of the first-year guys to Jamestown for a week long, and then they'd literally put them on the field, and then they would, I don't know if it was Fleming, but would actually stand on the mound and saying, "You're going to Vancouver, you're staying here in Jamestown, you're going to Vancouver."
Oh, really?
And that's how they part up. So anyways, that first week is where Carter became part of it.
Wow.
So he gives us credit, and we take it all,
Yeah, I guess I won't be going to the Hall of Fame, but I can say my first start was Elmira, who I don't think they have a team anymore.
No, they do not. Mm-hmm. At least not in this league. So you're drafted and signed by the Montreal Expos.
Marlins.
Oh, with the Marlins. Four Marlins, I'm sorry. Because we kept focusing on that. Yeah. Turn that over there, please. The Marlins, and was that the time period of Dombrowski?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and did you get a chance to kind of get a sense of where they might be going in that time period? I mean,
well, it was a fairly young franchise. I mean, I think the Marlins big league team was like 1990. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly sure, but it was a fairly young franchise. I think they'd only drafted a few years. So, as a player coming up, there wasn't already an established group at AAA or AA. We were kind of building that at that time. So it was a good opportunity.
Now, had Elmira come in after they were in Erie, the first year that the Marlins were in play, whereas in Erie?
Erie, yeah. And then my first year was 93, and that was the first year Elmira had a team.
Okay. Coming to this league, do you know anything about this league at all?
Coming to it, no. Another player and I lived with a woman in Elmira. We bought a couple bicycles because she only lived about a mile from the ballpark, but just to go to the grocery store or go out after the game, it seemed like the whole team bought used bikes, and one guy actually had a three-wheeler. It was kind of funny, but It was a fun league, you know. It's the first time you really get to play every day. You come out early, you take a lot of ground balls, hit a lot, and in college you're with the guys all the time, but here you really are. I mean, pretty much every day, all day, and it was fun to get to know a lot of the new guys and just hang out with the guys.
Did you find that through that camaraderie, did they have positions for you when they drafted you and they knew David Berg was going to be there, that you were going to be X, or were they able to be? Not
necessarily. I mean, I was drafted as a second baseman, but I had the ability to play third, and they had drafted 2 second basemen, and they wanted this other guy to play. So they asked me if I'd move over to third, and yeah, no problem, you know, wherever. And as long as I can get in the lineup, I'll play anywhere.
Yeah.
And it just worked out to where later on I got an opportunity to play short.
Really? In Elmira?
No, it was a couple years later in Brevard County.
You work your way up through the Marlins system, and at one point they win a world championship. Just probably the year. It sounds like
it was
the year before.
AAA.
Yeah. How did that impact you in AAA, watching this kind of fledgling organization? I must tell you, I was there. I was in the 7th game. I was at the game. Renteria's 11th inning hit. Place bananas. But here you are in the system. What was the sense of it all?
Well, you would think having a world championship caliber team that, you know, there's not going to be an opportunity, but you realize pretty quick that when you're out here playing professionally, you're playing for 30 different teams. I mean, there's scouts out there everywhere. And anytime you're on the baseball field, there's a chance that someone could see you, a GM, a scout, another coach or manager. There's always an opportunity for someone to see you and like what you do. So there's always going to have that opportunity to have a chance to play with another team.
You played 81 games in 1998. Now, whose spot did you fill as they were doing their fire sale?
The utility spot.
Okay.
With the opportunity to play shortstop from Freddie Gonzalez, who was actually my manager then.
Right.
I played short the rest of that Brevard County year, which was 96, and then, no, 95. And then 96, I played shortstop in AA and then shortstop in AAA. But being able to play shortstop, I think if you can play shortstop, you can play anywhere on the field, except for maybe pitcher. But there's some guys that can pitch, but being able to play short, you can play anywhere, and it just gives you an opportunity to move around. And a guy gets hurt, or a guy needs a day off, or pinch hit, and it just gives you more opportunities.
You walk in there in '98. What was the mood of the Marlins players, fans? Because here they were world champs. My God, top of the, and then fire sale.
Well, they didn't sell everyone. I mean, we still had Gary Sheffield and Bobby Bonilla and Charles Johnson and, you know, some of the big pitchers. It wasn't like the whole team was gone, but it was a little disappointing because a lot of the guys that had won, you know, spent a lot of time there and won the World Series, they were gone. Okay. But it wasn't we're getting rid of every single person. We still had some veterans on the team.
That certainly was the impression the world had.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Wayne Huizinga? Did he ever come into the locker room and talk to you guys?
Not that I remember. That was 17 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Long time ago.
Just an aside, the 7th game, we sat, because we had Dombrowski's tickets. It's a long story. But, so here we are, we're right, Jack Nicklaus is next to me, and Jeb Bush, and just literally 10 seats over was Wayne Huizinga. So it was a commissioner's box, what do they call it? And he stood the entire game.
Oh, nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can imagine, they go into the 11th inning and all that craziness, but it was really interesting. Did you find that, because with that transfer of some talent brought up a lot of young talent, and it wasn't, you know, too long thereafter when they actually went back to the World Series. Could you see it then? Could you see that they had built a base through the younger folks, even some of the pitchers?
I think the Marlins and Expos, now that the Expos are kind of taking over the Marlins, or that little transition period, it's kind of like the same thing, you know. I think they do a great job of evaluating talent. They got a really good scouting system and establish a lot of young players, and then when they become arbitration eligible, you know, if you trade off a guy like that, you're going to get young talent in return. So they just do a great job of evaluating talent.
I'm trying to think, the mustachioed, heavy-set head of the scouting, Gary
Hughes.
Gary Hughes, thank you. He would often come here, and then, of course, worked his way to the Marlins. Was he part of your world, too?
Yeah. Yeah, he was Dave's assistant to the general manager.
From Jamestown, New York, a native, is Dan Lanetta.
Is he really?
And Dan was he again part of your world?
Yeah, he was not the minor league director, director of player development. Yeah, yeah.
So Dan's from here, and he spends some of his summer every summer here.
Does he?
Yeah.
In Detroit.
Yeah, now he's in Detroit. With the whole crowd of guys. So, anyways, it's just it's a small world. And
Yes, it is.
I'm sure you find that
Very small.
that no matter where you stumble, somehow they're there. So you work your way through the Marlins, and at some point you end up with the Blue Jays. How'd that happen?
I was arbitration eligible, and it was kind of weird because it was during that whole transition period of the Expos and the Marlins, and there wasn't very good communication as far as the new group coming in and my agent, I guess. And I guess they just assumed I would want too much money, but after playing 9 years in the organization, it's like, well, I'll play for cheaper if I could stay here.
Yeah.
But we just didn't have that communication, and I was a free agent and had an opportunity to go to Toronto.
What was it like, I mean, from a cultural perspective? You're going from down south, warm, Toronto, not so warm.
Toronto wasn't bad because everything was kind of underground up there. You live downtown and you got the tunnels and the trains, and you don't really spend that much time outside, with the domed roof. It'll be snow outside, but you might be outside for 10 minutes. Then you're back inside under the dome.
Yeah. They also were going through somewhat of they'd had their glory years and a little bit of trying to revamp up. Did you get a sense of that at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they brought in a new GM that year, and they were trying to get rid of some bad contracts, I guess. And, all the way through the year, this guy would be gone, this guy would be gone, and it was, I guess, another transition period.
Was Steve or Dave Steve or Joe Carter, were they all had preceded you heavily about that? At one point, you get to the major leagues, you walk into the locker room that first game, and all of a sudden you see your name in the starting lineup. You get your first at bat. What's that like?
Unbelievable experience. That's probably one at bat I can always remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a run on second. I think I was hitting eighth. Jeff Juden was pitching, former Expo. Big guy, just looked monstrous out there. Threw 100 miles an hour. Fortunately, he fell behind in the count. I got to 3-0, so then he threw a strike, so I got to see 4 pitches and gauge the speed and all that. And obviously, the fastball was coming and threw it down the middle and made contact. And fortunately, it went into right field for a single and an RBI.
So you're standing there at first base. What passes through your mind?
I've done it. I made it, and after that, things just kind of fell into place.
In your family, was your dad a baseball player?
No, he wasn't. He worked at the railroad.
Yeah. Follow your career?
Yes, he did. He was proud.
Yeah. Come to games?
No, he would come when we were in San Francisco or Oakland. He didn't really like to fly, so whenever we go out on the West Coast, he'd come to games.
Did you ever get a header or two while he was in the stands?
Yeah. Early on, when I was in high school and stuff, he was almost bad luck to me.
Yeah.
It seemed like it.
Yeah.
He'd be there, and it didn't seem like I'd do too good. But when in pro ball, I had some success when he was in the stands. It was fun.
Home run, number 1.
Number 1, C.J. Nikowski, Houston Astrodome. That's like another thing you'll never forget is like your first hit and your first home run. It was a long at bat. I think it was like 13 pitches and just kept fouling balls off, and finally got the head out on one. And the old
you just say, my God, I can't believe it, here I am.
That was exciting. I mean, I don't, just adrenaline.
Yeah.
And my mom was there, my brother was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a good scenario.
Terrific. Why were they in town? Just for that?
Just to watch. My brother lives in Texas, and
Okay.
my mom came out and visited.
Oh, that's terrific. Highlights like that, you must have had others. What other ones were kind of David Berg moments?
Nothing specific. I mean, there's games where you get 4 hits. I think one year off the bench I had 4 4-hit games, which seemed like a lot.
Wow.
But nothing, I never really played in any significant games, so there's nothing really out there. But, you know, just dive and play to save the game, just a few instances.
7 years you played in the major leagues, and you close your eyes and I ask you the question. The funniest thing that happened that I saw on a ball field was what? How would you answer that question?
It was probably here in Jamestown.
Is there?
Yeah. You know, it was our first year in Pro Bowl, and we were facing the Expos, and Antonio Alfonseca was pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Played with him in Florida, and it's funny, it was even kind of more funny after playing with him, you know, because he was a young guy, but a big kid. He threw 100 miles an hour, and he had no idea where the ball was going. And he would just throw ball after ball after ball, and he's up there on the mound, and he's screaming. So you're standing in the box like, oh, my gosh. This guy has no idea where it's going, and he's up there, like, cussing in Spanish, like, really loud. And it's like, wow, I don't feel safe in here. It was funny. Well, to a point.
Yeah. What do the other guys think? I mean, was that the talk in the dugout?
Oh, everybody was laughing, but I was like, you're going to laugh until you got to step in this box and face him.
Well, we were talking a little bit off camera about guys who really do throw fast that maybe you had some success with, like Randy Johnson.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Well, it always seemed like, you know, he's a dominant pitcher, big guy, throws hard, and it always seemed like someone would come up with a little ailment or someone would need a day off. So, you know what, it's a great time to get the utility guys in there. So, and to us, it was kind of a challenge. You know, this is a big name. You've seen him on TV a bunch, and you know he throws hard, so you just kind of get in there and let it rip. And first at bat, I got a hit, and it seemed like every time we played against Randy Johnson, I was in the lineup since then.
Yeah.
But it could have just been one of those things where you see a guy better or just had some success.
Is it that fast? I mean, they talk.
Yeah, it is. Because he's, what, 6'7"?
Yeah.
I mean, the ball kind of seems like he releases it a little bit closer to you. But it's fast, and he's tall.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the first time you face him, you sit in the box, and you look up there, and he's just huge. You're like, wow. Well, then you kind of got to block it out and go, just look for the ball.
Yeah.
Just something simple.
I can't imagine facing him, first of all, even it's beyond my abilities, but even thought processes. But if you're a left-hander.
That'd be scary.
Yeah.
That would be really scary.
When he was here, everybody knew 6'8", whatever it was, and he could throw fast, but he was like 0-3. It's wild.
Yeah.
One quick Randy Johnson vignette, and I might sometime show it. Frank Wren, the current general manager
Yeah.
of Atlanta, was here. He
Yeah.
was the general manager in Jamestown, and he was given the bonus check, signing bonus for Randy, like $100,000. And it was given the check, and Randy every day would check in saying, Frank, do you have it yet? Do you have it? And Randy said, I don't have it, not yet. It hasn't come through the mail. I was caught up in Canada.